Let's call the copper coats. These are white creatures, I assume. There's 11, 12, 13, 14. That's rough. So we can't actually force them to sacrifice everything by invitation only, unfortunately. This video is brought to you by a huge mountain of drugs. Hello all, coming back with another Adeline video, a completely new build of her this time, up against Valky, God of Lies, and Tibalt, Kianne, Dean of Substance, and Imbraham, and Krenko, Mob Boss. Couple of double-faced commanders here. We have a very hefty hand and no ramp, so we're going to take the free mulligan on that one. And yeah, that's pretty slow. We can have our first two turns sorted out with Myriad Landscape though, so yeah, not entirely against this. It's not the greatest opening hand though. Oftentimes it's beneficial to go slow in the early game though and let the removal go on all the other players, so we'll try that one. And then we draw on our opening turn. That is a Solemn Simulacrum, so we do have the first few turns sorted out, I think. Just play out the Myriad Landscape and pass. Seeing a Goblin on turn 1 by the Krenko Mob Boss, and that is Goblin Bushwhacker, not coming in kicked, thankfully. There is another version of the Goblin Bushwhacker though. And then it's nothing from either of the other players, so we draw into our planes there. And the only thing we can do here is go for a Foretell on Cosmic Intervention, so we will do just that. Likely cracking the Myriad Landscape next turn, and then that sets us up for Solemn maybe. See a Goblin Tinkerer this time. Red tap, destroy target artifact. The artifact deals damage equal to its mana value to the Goblin Tinkerer. And there we see the Bushwhacker going towards the Simic player. First spell from Valky is a Coalition Relic, and putting a charge counter on that straight away, so sets them up for a decent chunk of mana next turn. Just another land for us, so we're not going to struggle on those this game. I will hold up the mana and go for the Myriad Landscape at the end of the Rakdos player's turn. We'll pretend to hold up some kind of removal, generous gift, swords, all that. Now, Goblin King, there is only one set of mountains in play and it's from the Rakdos player, so also getting the Anthem on there. Going straight in at the Simic player though, so just concentrating on one player for now, seemingly. And then we see the first commander of the game, that is Kianne, or Kianne, Dean of Substance. One black floating from the Coalition Relic. And just letting it go, surprisingly, so holding up the mana again from the lands. So at the end of the turn we will crack the Myriad Landscape for a couple more planes. And then round to our turn, of course, a Swiftfoot Boots is quite nice. So if we drop a land now, we've got 5 mana, we'll have 6 with Solemn, 7 next turn. So that means next turn we'd be able to go for Adeline and Hammer of Nazan, which kind of sets us up for edict effects and stuff like that, as well as ramping us ahead a land, which can be useful in white. So yeah, let's go for the Solemn here. Going a bit slower than Adeline decks might like to go typically, but I do like taking advantage of ramp while we've got it. If any more Anthem effects come out, we need to be wary of this Goblin Tinkerer as well. We are now seeing Goblin Pile Driver, which is pro-blue, good against the Simic player. Only 4 cards left in the Goblin player's hand at the moment. And once again, concentrating on the Simic player with those same 2 creatures, so hoping that the Kianne will go down, and it is against the Goblin Bushwhacker, so trading there. The Simic player still with 7 cards in hand. Noteworthy that there is an Academy Ruins in play now, so can get artifacts back on top of the library from the graveyard. And there's a really good enchantment, Growing Rights of Itlamok. In response to that, the Coalition Relic getting tapped down, and a counter going on there. And revealed with that is a Zagana Utopian Speaker. Here we see ourselves a Kervik the Merciless. So a lot of damage going to be getting flung around there. It's probably a good idea that we get the Hammer of Nazan going. Need 2 more power on here to make it relevant against the Hammer. So I fancy our odds of keeping it in play for a bit. Okay, Skull Clamp is really nice as well. I think we take a turn of tapping out here. So we'll throw down the Resplendent Cathar. Oh, but of course if we go for the Hammer, then the Hammer can target the Adeline, can't it? Yeah, so that goes on to our Solemn. That is 3 damage going on there. We may draw a card at least with the Solemn. Alright, a Gauntlet of Power. Yeah, getting the Swiftfoot Boots is probably the best idea then. If we have 1 more mana. then Sword of Feast and Famine would be even better. Problem is this thing can blow up the Swiftfoot boots and the Goblin Tinkerer will survive. Yeah, so the hammer perhaps not the best idea after all that. And I think Skullclamp and Swiftfoot boots are just going to die straight away to the Tinkerer. So maybe we try and use this to protect the Swiftfoot boots. Yeah, we've got to play cards here, so let's go for 2 mana with Swiftfoot boots. Maybe the Goblin King will get shot and that will help protect against the Goblin Tinkerer. Yeah, it does go on the Goblin King, that's really good, so that means that this can't take out the boots anymore, like I just said. So now, do we need to hold up the Cosmic Intervention? Yeah, there's going to be some big spells getting played potentially, which is not good against Adeline, so in order to protect the Foretell card, keep hold of that for as long as possible, let's just go Swiftfoot boots here. And then I might as well get myself another token. So let's go against the Simic player, who is wide open. We'll only keep one of the tokens here, but we do land 4 points of commander damage. And as the board stands now, we're still in a decent spot for the hammer. We can play the hammer into the sword being equipped next turn, so yeah, I don't expect Adeline will survive if our opponents can help it, but alright. One of the tokens being allowed to go through to the Goblin player, so not wanting to lose their Goblin Piledriver apparently. So our Adeline stays at a 3-4. Now seeing a Dark Dweller Oracle. Exile the top card of your library and you can play it this turn. And that means the Goblin Piledriver gets shot there by the Kervek, followed by a 1 mana creature. So Sneaking Guide likely gets rid of a human, and it does. And Krenko down to 3 cards now, only 3 mana as well. A Erratic Portal. So they can return the Kervek. That's probably the best thing to do here, is bounce this and force them to replay it again, because it is going to be a huge pain for us. 4 damage not going on to Adeline thanks to the boots. Did that go directly onto the Simic player's face? They're down to 23 already, so I assume so. And then returning the Kervek to their hand, they are tapped out. So that's a good play by the Simic player there, over to the Rakdos player's turn. Ooh, a Mana Geyser, plenty of mana there, so we've got 14 floating at the moment. And there is the Tibalt Cosmic Imposter, going for the plus on that seemingly. Exile the top card of each player's library. So there is a Bedevil, another land from us, Blighted Woodland, and a mountain, so not too lucky there. Still able to get the Kervek down though. So the question is, can we get rid of Tibalt at this point? Probably a good idea. I was hoping to untap my lands here. I think we certainly want to go for Hammer of Nazan. That will be 4 power on Adeline, and then 7. And then if we want to definitely get through to Tibalt, then we can go pro-black as well. That does mean we don't untap our lands though, unfortunately. Yeah, let's go for the hammer. So 4 damage being thrown at something. This time going at the Sneaking Guide. And the hammer goes straight onto our commander, of course. That means we can get free equip costs with it now. Yeah, if we could have untapped this turn, we could have gone for Gauntlet of Power as well, and then maybe Skullclamped a few times. Don't know if I particularly want to keep the Tibalt in play though. They do keep the emblem as well, so they can still go for the Bedevil. Yeah, I think we just have to get rid of Tibalt so they're not constantly getting more card advantage. I think I'd actually rather keep the hammer than the sword as well. I think they'll use Bedevil to get rid of the sword. So we can use that as a rattlesnake effect for them. 3 damage going onto something from the Kervek now. Also, obviously, they can minus down with the Tibalt, and that can get rid of an artifact or creature as well, which we definitely don't want them to do. So blowing up one of our tokens means that this is now a 5/6, but it will get buffed on attacks. So we will swing in at Tibalt with protection from black. Blocks once again not being made by the Goblin player. So leaving us with some creatures in play here, 1 more creature than we would have done. The Tibalt does go down, so that will now cost 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 mana, and they've already used the Mana Geyser. And then we see Krenko Mob Boss. That's pretty risky with a Kervek in play. I don't expect Krenko to survive the next turn cycle. Peppering away at the Simic player. We are still at 40, so wanting to see the back of the blue-green player there. I think we've all seen Simic players run away with the game, so that might be what the Rakdos player is thinking here. Erratic Portal, once again forcing Curvec to come back into play. Likely that they'll have to hardcast it next turn. And now a Biomathematician. Enters the battlefield, create a 0/0 fractal token, plus counter on it for each fractal you control, which is of course only 1 at the moment. And still only on 2 creatures unfortunately, so Growing Rights of Itlamok is not going to flip just yet. Bedevil going on to, yeah, that's a better target in my opinion, the Hammer of Nazan. Still have protection from black at least. And there's the Damnation, alright, so we've got haste at least. They needed to do that in order to get rid of our commander, so we will put Adeline in the command zone. Might be worth going for the Elspeth at this point then. Charge counter going on the Coalition Relic as well. And okay, getting to a board wipe of our own that I want to try out. That is by invitation only from the new set. Once again, if we had 1 more mana, then we could have gone Gauntlet of Power into the Elspeth, but if Gauntlet of Power was in play, then it would have eaten the Bedevil, I dare say, so how's about we just go for the Elspeth and start ticking up. Get some more removal out of the Rakdos player's hand, potentially. One of my favourite Planeswalkers this, knocked down to the number 2 spot since the Liliana Dreadhorde General came out. But Elspeth Sun's Champion is excellent as well. Let's go for, might as well go for a Boots onto the Soldier. Can't afford the Skull Clamp and Equip unfortunately, so not going to play it out and not equip it. Show my opponents that I'm looking at the Rakdos player. Don't want to ignore the Simic player for too long though. Might try and do somewhat of an alpha swing on them. There just seems to be a lot of removal coming from the Rakdos player, so definitely want to lose the artifact removal over there if I can. I think one of the mountains was played by Krenko from the Exile Zone as well, so yeah, just keep track of Exile. Yeah, we still have our cards in exile, but the mountain's gone here. That is a Goblin General. Whenever it attacks, creatures you control get +1/+1 until the end of the turn. And then it was a Lightning Bolt. Looks as though that went on to the Valky player, so down to 36. I think it would have been more worthwhile putting it on the Elspeth, to be honest, but seems as though this has become an arch-enemy game. Sakura Tribe Elder. And then a Cackling counterpart, so another copy of the Sakura Tribe Elder. There we are, speaking of lands being played from exile, that is the Simic player's Blighted Woodland. They could make green with the Coalition Relic, which is noteworthy. I think it's, yeah, only a single green for that, and it can go for any basics. Instead tapping it down for a Cryptghast. So they could get more swamps with the Blighted Woodland at some point if they want to. Now it's Chaos Warp. That goes on the Planeswalker. Probably just gets us into a land. Or nothing at all. I don't tend to have the best of luck with Chaos Warp. Yeah, just got us into a land. So still with 3 cards in hand and a decent chunk of mana. It is 2 from this swamp, 2 from this one, and then 2 mana from the 2 pieces held up there. So yeah, plenty of removal that could still occur. We have now a Smothering Tithe. So why don't we go for the Gauntlet of Power? Obviously name white with that. Luckily there's no other white players at the table, so this won't benefit them. And then we could go onto the Soldier, untap our lands on the Rakdos player, which means we could also make use of Dowsing Dagger. Yeah, why don't we do that? It's 2 to play, 2 to equip, 2 to equip this as well. So let's try that first. And that is successfully equipped. Now we'll go Dowsing Dagger. Pause on the Simic player's turn, so I'm wondering if there's some free counter magic over there that they might be thinking about. But eventually, deciding to pass the turn over, we will go Dowsing Dagger, give the Goblin player some creatures. We've got protection from the green plant tokens anyway. It is noteworthy that the Anthem effect from the Gauntlet of Power has switched off the Skull Clamp, by the way. Might still play and equip it though, because I dare say they'll want to switch off our double mana whilst we're untapping with the sword. So the plant tokens land there. We will go for an equip on the Dowsing Dagger. And then through we go to attack, so it can be a 6/5 with pro green and black, as well as hexproof in the Rakdos player. And then why don't we send a couple in at the Simic player as well. Yeah, hopefully not opening ourselves up to a swing back. I don't think we necessarily need to worry about any haste at the moment. And now it is a Rakdos Charm. That goes on to the sword, so still more removal over there. One of these Steves is going to be sacrificed. Extort. Not sure if they're paying for that or not. Only 2 cards left in the Rakdos player's hand at the moment. So they can block with the Cryptghast here if they want. That would switch off their double mana from the swamps. But if they don't block, then we do flip over the Dowsing Dagger into the Lost Veil, which is 3 mana of any one colour on a land. They are not blocking. No one's blocking here, so we get all the damage through. Or actually, they probably blocked with the Sakura Tribe Elder, didn't they? Oh no, they do go down to 14 there. I think they were at 18. Yeah, should have blocked one of each and then sacrificed with the Steve. I'm not sure that they actually did that. We certainly are transforming the Dowsing Dagger. So, whilst we're not making use of Skull Clamp, I wouldn't run out the Smothering Tithe if I could anyway, because we've got the double mana anyhow. I'd rather they put removal on this and switch off or switch back on our Skull Clamp. If we played out the Smothering Tithe, they'd blow this up before that anyway. Although we are against a couple of red players that can't really deal with enchantments. But anyway, regardless, we can't deal with that stuff anyway. Maybe we do just play an equipped Skull Clamp, but it's not doing anything yet. And again, they can blow up artifacts pretty easily, so I think we just hold up the Cosmic Intervention here. Maybe try and protect the double mana. So we'll pass there. Pashalik Mons. And that is 1 damage to any target whenever it or another goblin you control dies. A big spell from the green-blue player, a Leyline of Invocation. That is another fractal creature, equal to the number of lands you control, the plus counters. Still only 1 creature at least, so Growing Rites of Itlimoc, still nothing to worry about yet. So down that comes as an 8/8 fractal token. And with that, the Goblin player decided to scoop. Don't fancy their odds of coming back from this. Yeah, I don't particularly fancy their odds either, to be honest. And thanks to the double mana, we see the Tibalt come back into play again. Extort on the Cryptghast at 32 life at the moment. And deciding not to pay into that, so down comes the Planeswalker. And it is the plus again on there. Grabbing a Mana Crypt from us. There is a Gamble with 3 cards in hand. And a Darksteel Citadel. Extort again, they cast our Mana Crypt straight away. And now with 2 cards left in hand, just leaving it there, so we'll go round to our turn. Didn't have to make use of the Foretold card. Draw into Teferi's Protection. I'm sure that that's what our opponents may have thought that we were holding on to there. So we could go by invitation only and force our opponents to sacrifice 1 creature. One of the rare instances of white forcing your opponents to sacrifice with an edict effect, which is why I wanted to play test it here. Why don't we just go in for Adeline again? Try and encourage the Rakdos player to blow it up. And then are we going to see Adeline die to a board wipe or something? It might be worth going for the Skull Clamp. Well, we'll see what they do with a Swiftfoot Boots on the stack first. Let's try and put that on there. If they can blow up in response to a Swiftfoot Boots, then they could have blown up in response to a Skull Clamp equip as well, so might as well test the waters here. And that is allowed to land, so yeah, why don't we see about Skull Clamp here? Against my better judgment. We do have protection in both the Cosmic Intervention and the Teferis now, so yeah, let's go for Skull Clamp. Play and equip onto the Adeline. And then having to waste 1 mana with the Smothering Tithe, but even if they get rid of the Gauntlet, we'll still have mana held up for the Teferis, so yeah, we'll go Smothering Tithe as well. Actually, we're wasting a mana either way, so might as well waste the one that's floating and we can go for it after combat just in case something happens. Might draw into a card with Skull Clamp that we'd rather play. So can't force damage through to the commander here, but we can land 6 points with the soldiers. It does mean that we're gonna take a swing in from the 8/8 potentially, but I think we're showing the Simic player that we've really concentrated on the Villis here. So we'll swing everything in at Tibalt, see if they want to give up their double mana. I suppose actually, yeah, we could have held up a token there, couldn't we? Held back one of these tokens because we were going to get these into play. So Adeline now an 8/4. See if they want to allow their commander to go down. Could potentially be, yeah, maybe should have hit the player directly with this and let the tokens go in at Tibalt. Anyway, looks like Tibalt's going down. A Fractal is blocking one of our tokens. I don't like leaving a Simic player around for longer than I perhaps should, but it hasn't been a completely obnoxious Simic deck so far, so yeah, let's go for the Smothering Tithe. And we will pass at that, I think. I suppose we could block something with the Adeline and have it die just to draw the cards, and then it comes back in with the Cosmic Intervention. Not sure if that would be a waste of that Foretold card though. Adrix and Nev twin casters, so wants to double up the tokens that are made, which might have been suggested from the Growing Rights of Itlamok. See if they can get a couple of fractals into play here, because that will flip that around. A replicate, so getting a couple of fractors from the replicate. They will come down to 0/0s though, won't they? I don't think they get the plus counters there. Yeah, we'll see, but I don't think it copies the plus counters, it just makes them, yeah. Unfortunately, our opponent didn't foresee that. Might see a shame scoop here. It does copy the creature. It doesn't care about what counters are on said creature. And fractals are 0/0s. So I imagine they expected to get a couple of 8/8s there. Yeah, our opponent being a good sport about it and just realising that that doesn't work straight after they did it. I've done that a million times myself. So we'll see if Villis wants to crack the Blighted Woodland. It looks as though that's what he's doing. Yes, going for some more black mana, I dare say, cracking the Blighted Woodland. Hopefully our mana crypt will do some work towards knocking their life total down a bit. And it does, so they go down to 27. Smothering Tithe will trigger. We definitely need to start landing some hits with Adeline. Haven't gotten into any of the evasion, apart from the sword, of course, which soon bit the dust. And now going for that gamble from exile with 3 cards in hand. They might go for a board wipe here. And there is a Blasphemous Act being discarded, so I wonder if that's what they just went for. Looks like might just be going in for the commander again then, assuming that that was the card that they just tutored for. Yep, there's Tibalt Cosmic Imposter again. I think that's the 3rd time that's come into play. And once again going for the plus with Tibalt. There is a Farseek, which they could get a black or red mana with. A Rakdos Signet, yep, just getting lots of mana. Command Beacon could be useful to them. So playing the Rakdos Signet. Don't think they've paid for a single extort this game, still staying at 27 life there. And then it is the Darksteel Citadel was played from the exile zone of the Simic player. And playing the Farseek as well, so likely going for a Shockland or a Jewel of some kind. Once again not paying for extort. 3 mana held up and 3 cards left in hand. Surprised they didn't play the Command Beacon as opposed to the Darksteel Citadel there, to be honest. I'm not sure what they get out of Darksteel Citadel. Doubt they'd want Metalcraft. Anyway, looks as though going through to the end step, there is nothing for us to do on the end step, so we'll keep hammering away at the Rakdos player, I think. And there is a Rick, Steadfast Leader. Leave your dislikes now. So I think we're just straight through to combat here. Let's go for the Lord, which is... ooh, what do we go for here? I think it's First Strike, Lifelink, Vigilance. Do we particularly care about Lifelink? Maybe it's just First Strike and Vigilance, so that we can hold up blockers. Yeah, I might regret not going for Lifelink, but let's go First Strike, Vigilance. Although, as the turns progress, we can hold up more and more blockers, because we'll get attacking tokens. I'm going to be greedy and go First Strike, Lifelink. And then we actually don't control 4 or more humans at the moment, but we will once we attack in, so I don't think I particularly care about attacking in with Rick here. So yeah, let's just go through to combat. Noteworthy that Tibalt's command attacks for the next turn was paid for there, thanks to Farseek and getting another land into play. Yeah, they've saved themselves a decent chunk of life, thanks to distracting us with the Tibalt, but we are going to start trying to hit them with the Adeline now. So currently 8 commander damage, it will be considerably more than that, and we could potentially get rid of their Cryptghast here. So our humans jump up by +2/+2, so we've got some 4/4 creatures swinging in. These remain as 2/2s because they came down with the Elspeth. And our commander is a 12/6 with Vigilance, First Strike, Haste, Hexproof, Lifelink, and yeah, the 8/8 going in the way of a 4/4. Our opponent needs to be careful taking that much commander damage here because we do have the by invitation only, which could force some commander damage through to the Rakdos player, could get the win off next turn if they're not careful. So chopping them down to 12 commander and 11 life, we jump up to 64, and their commander goes down once again. Does go back to the command zone. Yeah, I mean, thanks to not going off with the Skull Clamp, it's great to get the double mana, but It has switched that off and potentially slowed us down a lot, but then again Rick would have done that as well, so it's the problem with Skullclamp. I've actually been building a Millicent in paper. It's not available on Magic Online for some stupid reason, but a Millicent Spirits deck in paper. And that's the problem that you run into with wanting to run Skullclamp in tokens, is if you're running Anthems, it kind of switches that off. So there are some Anthems that you can make use of that only buff power and leave them at 1 toughness, which obviously is really good with Skullclamp. But when you're in a situation like this, it feels pretty bad not being able to refill your hand, especially mono white. Anyway, Simic back down to 3 cards in hand. There is a Hardened Scales and the Zagana, which we saw previously. So giving their Fractal token, trample with that because it does have plus counters on it, of course. And they trigger the Smothering Tithe again from the Zagana coming in. A Biomancer's Familiar, which cares about activated abilities. That does finally get them into the 4 creatures they need though. And they have the Growing Rights of Itlamok. And 8/8 with Trample, still focused on the Villis. So maybe that's going to get blown up here. That is a Terminate going on there. So that's a Terminate that's not going on our stuff. Yeah, I played my Queen Marquesa deck not long ago on this channel and noted to some of the viewers that removal tribal's pretty infuriating to play against, so I appreciate why some people can get pretty salty about it. Villis managed to hold on for quite a while though, still holding on to that Crypt Gas for dear life. And now the Mana Crypt that they stole from us is a real ticking time bomb. It is noteworthy that once again, they've been cheated out of the Itlamok Cradle of the Sun as well. Playing and cracking the Command Beacon. So yeah, didn't go for it last turn because they were planning on doing it this turn clearly. So knocking a bunch of command attacks off their commander. 8 life and 12 Adeline commander at the moment. So down comes the Tibalt again. Be very surprised if they don't pay into Extort at any point during these proceedings. Yeah, okay, they just jumped up to 10, so did pay for the Extort there. The last thing we're worried about is life at the moment. Don't think we've taken a single hit this game, strangely. Exile off the top with the Tibalt again. And Spitting Image is a really cool card. There is a Rousing Refrain. Red for each card in a target opponent's hand. You don't lose mana. Exile it with 3 time counters on it. And it has a spend of 2 as well. They've got a Call of the Coppercoats from us as well, which is really bad news. Yeah, that's probably one of the worst cards that they could have got from us, actually. Luckily, we've got the buffs from the Rick, so we'll have to play around the fact that it could be bounced with this. We'll have to just go all out on the Rakdos player, whilst the Simic player is distracted. Out comes Kervek again, which could absolutely shoot the Rick, although that is a 6/7 at the moment. And there is an Ensnaring Bridge. Creatures with power greater than the number of cards in your hand can't attack. Yeah, and they've only got 1 card in hand at the moment. That's pretty bad for us. Starting to see why I've been concentrating on the Villis player now. At least don't have mana open for the Call the Coppercoats. That's one of the things I'm most worried about at the moment. I've been fully expecting a board wipe before now and I haven't seen it, unfortunately. That's why the Skullclamp is out here. I think we would have seen one if our opponent had actually landed the Blasphemous Act, although it wouldn't have blown up our board anyway, thanks to the protection. But now starting to think that it was a bad idea to get Skullclamp out, as I half guessed it was already. Grand Abolisher. I mean, Grand Abolisher's handy against the Rakdos player, potentially. Can't attack with anything. So we're just holding up protection, I think. Let's go for the Grand Abolisher for several turns from now. Should maybe equip the Skullclamp onto a token as well, because I think it's more likely that a token will get shot. Worst case scenario, it dissuades them from shooting one. Kervek trying to shoot the Adrix and Nev, but that has Ward 2, so we'll see if they want to pay the 2 to get rid of that. They do not. So we'll just drop the Clamp on a Soldier token, and I think we're going to have to pass from there thanks to the Ensnaring Bridge. This is where Tibalt starts to run away with the game if we're not careful. Adapt 4 from Zagana, and that is only going to cost 4 mana to do that, so a bunch of plus counters going on her. She is now a 9/9. 9/9 with Trample that can't attack, unfortunately. So now it's round to Tibalt's turn again, and we'll see how much damage he can do here. Still has to dodge the the mana crypt flips, but does have life gain from the Crypt Ghast. So I don't think that's going to be too relevant. Should maybe have done the by invitation only last turn to get rid of the Crypt Ghast as well as the Kervek, and then they can not gain life from the Crypt Ghast there. Exile the top card of each player's library with the Tibalt once again. Oh, and there's a Seedborn Muse, a Scheming Symmetry, a Chromatic Orrery. They exiled a land from the top of our library, by the way. They've only got black and red permanent colours at the moment, so Chromatic Orrery not drawing them too many cards. They are down to 0 in hand. They should probably look at playing the Seedborn Muse this turn, though. Can they do that? Yeah, they can do that at instant speed, of course they can, so yeah, that with Seedborn Muse is pretty damn good. So there is the Seedborn Muse. They've gone back up to 11, likely pay the Extort here as well, no reason not to. Back up to 13. We can do something about the Seedborn Muse at least. We can force them to sacrifice with the by invitation only. We also, thanks to the Grand Abolisher, know that they can't activate this in response, so that is really good. They will get an untap though, and they will draw 3 cards now thanks to having Jund. Let's call the Coppercoats. These are white creatures, I assume. Yeah, white creatures coming into play. So that is 4 that they're going to have. Back up to 15 life. And that makes our by invitation only a hell of a lot worse. So maybe we have to waste the Teferi's Protection and then go like 13 on this. Hopefully that's enough. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. There's 11, 12, 13, 14. That's rough. So we can't actually force them to sacrifice everything by invitation only, unfortunately. And even if we do get rid of the Ensnaring Bridge, we've no means of getting through at the moment, haven't drawn into our evasion on Adeline. Now we see Spitting Image, that goes on to the Rick, Steadfast Leader. I mean, are we looking for a board wipe here anyway? We might be able to start drawing cards with Skull Clamp if we're going to be blocking them over here. They'll potentially gain life themselves on the Rick though. I think we just allow it without going to Teferi's Protection. Really been hosed by the fact that I've switched off my own Skull Clamp. People are probably going to suggest running sack outlets for things like this, but now I'm just adding sack outlets for the sake of switching Skull Clamp on, which is just a means of making Skull Clamp good. Argument to be made for going like Ashnod's Altar or something because we're making a lot of creatures and it's a means of ramp, so yeah, potentially something I could do there, maybe Phyrexian Altar and the Ashnod's Altar could go in here. Anyway, Rick coming into play, that is First Strike and Lifelink, and they can't attack thanks to the Ensnaring Bridge, so just setting themselves up for when they actually can attack. So I'm sure that we're just going to draw into a basic land here. No, okay, it's a Swords to Plowshares, so we definitely want to go on the Seedborn Muse with that, I think. Yeah, and buy ourselves some time. We certainly don't want them refilling their hand too much with the Chromatic Orrery, although it's not going to slow them down enough to keep them from refilling their hand. They draw 4 cards during the Simic player's turn and 4 cards on their own. But we can take green away from them at least, so they'll draw 3 and 3. Yeah, it's still a lot. It's the Rakdos players to win here, but we'll go 4 swords onto the Seedborn Muse. And Kervek puts 1 damage on the Simic player. So wants to turn this into a 1v1 if he can. And the problem is, if we go by invitation only now, and Teferi's Protection, it knocks the Simic player out, so do we just want to make it a 1v1 right now? And hope that we can get past the Ensnaring Bridge all by ourselves? I think we just have to try and keep the Simic player in it. Maybe they get Cyclonic Rift or something. And I think it's more likely that our Grand Abolisher is going to get shot now, so we'll move the Skull Clamp over that way. And once again, just waiting for that Ensnaring Bridge to go down. With the emblems on this, it is, yeah, Seedborn Muse back in exile now, but shouldn't be able to play it unless there's some Magic Online trickery, because it is cards exiled with Tibalt that can be replayed here, and this isn't within the game. This isn't the version that was exiled with Tibalt, it's the one that was exiled with Swords to Plowshares, so yeah, shouldn't be able to recast that again. So we'll try and have the Simic player do something here. Seeing a 3 mana Sequence Engine, exile a target creature card with mana value X from a graveyard, put a fractal token into play. So that's not particularly going to help them there, and they probably get bolted. Nope, starting to target our Rick Steadfast Leader, so might suggest that they've got something planned for that. So 3 damage going on to Rick. I mean, arguably we're looking for evasion and commander damage now anyway. Exiling our Solemn Simulacrum with that, so gonna get a 4/4 fractal. And they will get 2 of those thanks to the Adrix. So once again, unable to attack unfortunately. Game's really been ground to a halt by the bridge. And seemingly unable to get rid of Rick Steadfast Leader with 0 cards in hand. Quorum Rites of Itlimoc at the end of the turn finally, flipping round into Itlimoc Cradle of the Sun. I think it's less relevant now than it has been. And the Rakdos player going for that Chromatic Orrery at the end of the turn will draw 3 cards, which makes 3 more treasure tokens for us. Ooh, there is a Vandal Blast. Yeah, so that's where this thing comes in handy for this turn. I don't think the Swiftfoot Boots and the Gauntlet are particularly going to matter, so we might as well use the treasures here. Not sure what their plan is with Vandal Blast, to be honest. I don't really see how it helps them, but obviously I don't know what's coming, so we'll go for the Foretell card. I want to hold on for Teferi's Protection and by invitation only because those two are a little bit of a combo for a one-sided board wipe. 4 damage going directly onto the Simic player from the Kurvek. That's done some work this game. And we might as well tap this stuff for mana as well. Well, the Simic player decided to scoop at that, which might make a difference, because Kurvek can start pointing damage at us as opposed to the Simic player. Also, it means that we've got 1 less chance of getting rid of the Ensnaring Bridge as well. This will knock Hexproof off the Adeline, which might be what our opponent's hoping for. So Vandal Blast resolves, that exiles our Swiftfoot Boots, Gauntlet and Skull Clamp. We've got 10 floating from the treasures, which wouldn't have come back. Anything else that gets blown up here will come back at the end step. Maybe they're looking to destroy their own Ensnaring Bridge and start swinging in at us through to the beginning of combat. And they can start attacking now, so they're gonna go up a big chunk of life. Do we just try and take this? We can block with some stuff here. So if we block there, there, and there, we will gain 15, 19 life, and we will take 8, 16, 24 life. So yeah, not really anything to worry about, I don't think. Can try and encourage something else out of our opponent's hand. Also, this makes the by invitation only and Teferi's Protection much better. Now they've got something else for us, apparently. That is Infernal Grasp. Alright, going on to... yeah, they're very eager to get rid of our Rick. So now they're going to lose only 2 creatures to blocks. That is 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. So we could let this go down and then just go for 13 on by invitation only and hold up the protection still. Yeah, I mean, we're not attacking anyway, so it's just a case of the Rakdos player slowly getting the win at this point. We'll let the Rick go down, I think. So we lose the Grand Abolisher because we lost the +2/+2 on that. Bear in mind that those 2 will come back into play. Our opponent goes up to 52, we go down to 34. And then they've got the Pain Doubler maybe. Alright, that's Angrath. I was thinking maybe we'd see the Wind Reflection or something like that. That is Angrath. Gain control of a creature until end of turn, untap it. If it has mana value 3 or less, sacrifice it. Not really worried about losing our Adeline with the text that it currently has on it. Each opponent discards a card and loses 2 life is something that I don't want to see. Playing a Snow-Covered Plains from our library there, or from exile. We've got 1 card left in hand. And then a Fraying Omnipotence. Each player loses half their life, discards half the cards in their hand, then sacrifices half the creatures they control. So, do we just have to go for Teferi's Protection to try and save our life here? I mean, we're losing this one, we might as well, I think. Kurvek pointed at the token. That will not come back, of course, because tokens evaporate as soon as they hit any other zone. They still have mana to draw some cards with the Chromatic Orrery as well. Alright, they've targeted us already with that, so didn't do what I thought it was going to do. Alright, So we lose the by invitation only. I think we were going to lose that anyway to the Angrath, so suppose we might as well keep our board if they're going to destroy our hand. Each opponent discards a card and loses 2, yeah, so we were definitely going to be discarding that board wipe regardless of whether we went for Teferi's Protection or not. And then exile all graveyards, playing our Sword of Feast and Famine. And then all of our stuff is going to come back into play, so we get 5 more permanents, no ETBs unfortunately. So they've got access to Terminate here, they've got access to Rakdos Charm. Yeah, it's pretty much theirs to win here, or they've got the Bedevil as well. So plenty of instant speed removal, Infernal Grasp of course. Yeah, the Terminate going onto the Grand Abolisher, because they still want to be able to go Chromatic Orrery as well as other things. Let's go for First Strike and Lifelink. Gauntlet of Power is white, and they do have one of our Snow Cover Plains over there still. So let's see what we top deck into. Yeah, it is a Plains, so I think I'm okay scooping it sometime soon here. If this game goes on for another long turn, then I think I'll just scoop it up, because really don't see what we're going to do here. I'll put the Skull Clamp onto Rick because they seem keen to get rid of Rick. And here it looks as though we're seeing spot removal in response. That is Infernal Grasp going onto the Rick in response. They still have a Bedevil that they can go for as well. So we'll go Swiftfoot Boots onto Adeline. And then Skull Clamp can go on a regular soldier token. And we'll just have to leave it there again. They've got the Call the Coppercoats again, thanks to exiling the graveyards. Grand Abolisher coming back into play during our end step thanks to... Yeah, they blew it up during their end step while it still had the Cosmic Intervention or whatever it's called on it. So that comes in during the next end step, which is this one. So perhaps our opponent didn't think about that. Don't think it's really too relevant though. So there we are. That is our by invitation being cast from exile, so forcing us to sacrifice all of our creatures here, I imagine. So we'll get our Skull Clamp here at least. And we'll draw our 2 lands straight off the top. It's mana. And then being forced to discard, so we'll get rid of the Pearl Medallion, which should be pretty useless for our opponent. Then it's Rakdos Charm, destroying. Yeah, they've got the access to the Rakdos Charm again, thanks to exiling it from the bin. So now the Ensnaring Bridge finally goes down, so hopefully I'll be able to hand it over to my opponent next turn as well, and they'll just finish me off. I will give them every chance to do that. Noteworthy that this gets the buff from Rick as well, because it is a human. Then it is Scheming Symmetry, which seems pretty risky at this point. I'll just go for the Austere Command, I think. I think they can make use of Cosmic Intervention though, so yeah, I don't see that there's really anything we can do here. Maybe our opponent hasn't seen it though, we'll play around it regardless. Yeah, let's just go for Elspeth, Sun's Champion. They're going to be able to go for the Cosmic Intervention no matter what we do, so... Oh, and they didn't go for the plus on Tibalt anyway, I thought they'd already plussed on there. Apologies, I've kind of switched off here, so no matter what we went for there, they were going to be able to exile it with Elspeth. Mask of Memory, we'll see what we can draw into just for the fun of it. Can Lightning Bolt us with the Curvec here, so that will likely tick us down. Adeline will go down with some spot removal in response. Now, of course, and there we go, they've got these Swords to Plowshares as well. Like I said, it's difficult to look at the exile zone and know what has been exiled with Tibalt and what hasn't, because some things were in exile from other things. But they've got the swords there, so I don't think we can replay Adeline again and equip. And it's definitely their game anyway, so I will scoop it there. And that is good game to my opponent. Hell of a comeback there from Tibalt. I know it's a cliche to always focus on the Simic player, you should always analyse every board and every type of deck that someone is playing, and I know for a fact that Tibalt Cosmic Imposter is very, very resilient, as we saw here, so definitely wanted to focus them out of the game before the Simic player, and we saw why here. Really backbreaking from the Ensnaring Bridge and switching off my own Skull Clamp, so maybe that's something to work on in this deck. Didn't get into any of the spot removal that we needed anyway, so maybe could have got into some of the spot removal that we needed there if that hadn't been the case, but there we are. It was a hell of a comeback from my opponent, and we do love a comeback on this channel, so hopefully you all enjoyed that. Be sure to leave it a thumbs up if you did, and consider donating on Patreon via the link in the description below. Massive thank you to all of you who are doing that already. I'm tribalkai on the EDH channel. Thank you for watching.